Okay, well, thank you everyone for coming along to this one. I think new experience for the panel. I don't think any of you have ever had to follow in the footsteps of Ricky Hatton, so I think there is always a first time for everything, isn't there? So,
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely, David.
So, very happy to open this afternoon's panel discussion, and ultimately what the objectives and the goals that we want to take from this afternoon is understanding how we can use the supply chain and we can work within partnership to drive value. So just to sort of do a brief introduction, we have tried to cram as many people onto the sofa as well for this session. So on my far left, I'm delighted to be joined by Tom Edgecumbe from Aggregate Industries. In the middle, we've got, so apologies, I'm messing
Someone else.
Philip Bouverat from JCB, Global External Affairs, and finally, closest to me on my left, I'm joined by Asif Latief, who is our new Chief Commercial Officer here at Speedy Hire. So, first of all, Asif, you've only recently joined us. It's your first Speedy Hire Expo. How have you found the day so far? But more importantly, how have you found the first 3 months at Speedy Hire?
Yeah, firstly, in terms of the Expo, what an event. Absolutely, what an event. I know a lot of the suppliers anyway through my roles. I've been in the industry for 20 plus years, so I know a lot of the supply chain, but it's great to see Speedy putting on such an event where it brings the industry together, drives innovation. In terms of my first 3 months, I think Speedy is a great organization, strong brand, but at the same time, lots of opportunity. And I think the biggest strength that I've seen that Speedy has is the people that work within Speedy. So I'm really excited by the move, and I'm looking forward to what the future holds for us.
And it's obviously great to have you on board. So, first of all, Asif, and I know you'll have sort of came into this as you've joined the business, but we have Speedy Hire been recognised for it taking an innovative approach to driving value in the supply chain, mainly through our use of technology and working with our AI partners. We've got a strategic partnership now in place with our AI partner Peak, and they're helping us to optimize our systems, which allow us to get the product to the customer when they need it. So how do we set up as a business to make sure that we are future-proofed to ensure that our customers get the ultimate customer experience?
Yeah, so look, it's not just about the AI part. Coming into Speedy from the outside, there's a lot of technological advancements that we have either started or have implemented, which are, in my opinion, are quite advanced. Specifically in relation to Peak and the artificial intelligence, this industry is all about the right product, right place, right time. And what that partnership's allowing us to do through our ARP, Automatic Replenishment Program, is not just to move equipment around the country based on where we think demand is going to be, but predicting it. So I think that's a great way to approach moving our equipment around. And the more data that comes into the system, into the data warehouse, it gives us even more information to make more informed decisions. And specifically around investment, looking at the customers we're winning, the tenders we're going through, looking at the markets and sectors we're working in, and allowing us to move our product around based on specific markets and sectors. So there's a lot of work going on, but that's only the start of the journey. We've got plans in place now to drive that relationship further, to understand more about our customers. So, for example, one of the projects we've started recently is looking at the recency and frequency of our customer behavior. For me, understanding that behavior is really important because, yes, we've got a lot of satisfied customers, but equally, there's some customers who end up in our blind spot. So we want to be in a position whereby we can identify where perhaps we have got room for improvement, and we can proactively approach them before they become lapsed or vote with their feet. So that's a big part of that relationship we're looking to drive forward.
Definitely, and I think, Tom, just to bring you in here, I think, just for those either who will be watching or who will catch up on social media or who are in the audience, you are a customer of Speedy Hire. So, from your perspective, what Asif has said around, making sure the product's in the right place at the right time, what does that mean to you, and does that give confidence to you that we can meet your requirements?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've recently signed up with Speedy, and we're absolutely delighted to have done that. It was the decision was really all about that kind of right place, right time. But more importantly, it was about the innovation that you could bring into aggregate industries. You are effectively the experts in this field, and when you kind of walk around the hall today, you see the great innovations, whether it be in kind of alternative fuels, within kind of plant materials. There's some fantastic stuff out there. So we're looking to you guys to really help us lead the way, and be the best possible deliverer of materials we can be in the UK.
I think that's a really good point, Tom. And I think coming back to the point that we made around sort of expertise, and I think that's where we look to the likes of Philip and JCB really, because ultimately they are they're experts in what we do, and we trade off their expertise. So, Philip, how does that sort of sit with you, just in terms of the work that you do with our supply chain, ultimately to make sure that the likes of the guys at Aggregate and Industries get the sort of product and the innovation that they obviously crave?
I think the easiest thing to talk about is, do you understand your customer's customer? First thing. If you don't understand your customer's customer, then you don't understand the direction of travel. At JCB, we have a slightly different view on that as well, because innovation moves very fast. So do international regulations. We've all gone through 6 engine changes in the last 20 years here in the UK. We're selling stage 5 generators now, because that's the only thing you can use in the main cities of the UK. Whereas being a global company, we have different regulations around the world. So I think that understanding your customer's customer is the first thing. Then the thing I always ask, if I want to go and see a chief executive of a tier 1 anywhere in the world, I basically say, can I come and have a cup of coffee and try and understand where you want to be in 5 years' time? And once you understand that, you can start bringing your technical people together. We can start looking at AI elements. But the one thing I would say is, I've known Asif for 20 years, weirdly. I mean, it goes back a long way, because I came in from a job in China for JCB to look at major accounts and national accounts in the UK. So the first thing I did was look at who supplies the UK construction market. And Speedy came out of the traps. These guys are in the market. They know what they're doing. They're in pumping, they're in generation, they're in all sorts of areas. Let's go and talk to them. And so that's where that started. So I think I do agree with Asif on AI, but we're in the people business as well. And it's about relationships. People don't do business with people they don't have empathy with. So those personal relationships overlying the data and the customer's need is really important.
And I think that's a good point.
No.
The relationship going back 20 plus years. Well, actually, there have been times where I rang Philip up and I said, I just asked a random question, and the answer would be there, and we say, okay, we'll speak again in a few weeks' time. So it's building that relationship, and equally doing that same with our customer base is really important for us. So it's that we want to replicate that relationship as we move forward.
No, I think that's exactly it. And I think everyone talks about the opportunities that AI presents, but I think ultimately what, where we get the richness of those relationships from is in the people-facing industries, which, we obviously, deal with every day. I think, Philip, you touched upon the importance of, understanding your customer. And I think at Speedy Hire, we've been at the forefront of embracing new technologies, particularly around new fuel sources. So whether that be hydrogen or battery fuel solutions for tools, equipment, powered access now as well. So Asif, how do you see these advancements in shaping the future of the rental industry? You've obviously got a lot of experience, you're 20 plus years in here, you've seen it all before, but how does the innovation drive our sort of operational effectiveness for our customers, but ultimately a wider sustainability goals as well?
I think hydrogen and battery power will have a major impact as we move forward. I think from a battery point of view, batteries have been around for a long time. If we would have been having this conversation 10 years ago, we would have been talking about lead acid or nickel cadmium. Since then we've had nickel metal hydride, lithium ion, and now lithium polymer technologies. And I think that will keep happening. If you look at Tesla, they're innovating all the time. The batteries that are being used in the vehicle just in this room are being innovated all the time, and that will evolve, so it'll have a big impact. From a hydrogen point of view, if you look at hydrogen, if you take a hydrogen generator versus a traditionally powered diesel generator, it's contributing, its carbon footprint is next to nothing. So it's keeping the air cleaner, but also it's the noise element. So when you take all that into consideration, once the infrastructure is improved as we move forward, I think it'll have a big impact on our industry and globally in other industries. If you look at the Nifty Lift HR15 that we have here, that's a product that can be used on site for 2 weeks without it being recharged. The 4-kilogram tank is recharging the battery when it hits 77%, taking it to 82, not only looking after making sure the battery is working at its optimum, and it's also giving the hydrogen tank a bit of a breather so it's more safer to use on site. So, and that technology will evolve. I believe we're only at the beginning of using that technology.
I think, again, it's a really good point in how quick we move as well, and how quick the industry's been driven, mainly by our, the voice of our customer driving that. Philip, I mean, I think we've obviously seen the sort of zero emissions JCB range come to market. Off the back of what Asif said, I mean, even just a few years ago, we thought that you could have JCB kit running off, zero emissions kit, battery power would probably have been for the birds. So I think how important and how do you what approach the JCB take to innovation?
Well, we've got a little digger over there which weighs 800 kilos, which goes around the back of your house and digs a whatever. And then these gentlemen here buy things that weigh 24 tons with 4-meter buckets on them. So we have about 9 platforms with about 300 products. So let's just separate them slightly. Anything below 3 tons, battery works, as long as the duty cycle is okay for recharging it, depending on the charge of the battery. For instance, if we're working on a utility fibre optic job in a city centre, that digger's only probably operating 3 hours, maybe. But if we've got a 22-ton excavator doing ground clearance down on East Thames Crossing, it's going to be 8-hour shifts, 3 of them, 24 hours a day, and the refueling time has got to be sub 5 minutes. And the machines don't move, the fuel goes to the machine. So we need to think about that as well. So to cover what Asif just said, I don't think there's any single answer, and technologies will move, but we have to consider lots of options. With hydrogen, you've got to consider the energy security option, because you're not importing rare earth, you're not importing fossil fuel, and you can effectively create hydrogen from water and green energy, mainly wind power. So it ticks a lot of the road to zero answers. We've developed an engine which works in the mid-range products, so sort of 5 tons to 12 tons at the moment, and we'll go beyond that. And one of our engine partners, Cummins, has gone much bigger at about 200 to 300 horsepower, mainly for the agricultural market. So we're all adapting, but we've just finished a consultation with our government here, and they've adopted hydrogen as a future fuel, and they've approved hydrogen combustion as a way of doing it. Now that's a shift, because 3 years ago they were saying combustion's dreadful. Well, yeah, with fossil fuel it is, but if you put clean fuel in it that's zero output, there's nothing wrong with combustion. It's very efficient. It's what you put in it.
Absolutely. And I think, Tom, based on what Asif and Philip have just said, mainly around sort of driving innovation, and you mentioned it in your answer earlier on, it's one of the reasons why you made the switch over to Speedy Hire. What approach do you like to see from not just Speedy Hire but your supply chain partners to make sure we can support you on your own drive to cut out emissions?
So we work, mean, Philip's point on understand your customer's customer is a really good one. And we obviously work very closely with National Highways. They're our biggest UK customer. We also work obviously with tier ones across the UK. And as part of that, we've generated a roadmap to net zero 2050. And ours very much aligns with the National Highways roadmap. The key element of that is around energy. So we've obviously got cement, we've got oil-based products within our range. They're two quite heavy carbon generators. So we've got a plan around each of those. And then the third kind of element of our decarbonisation strategy is very much around fuel. So whether that's fuel for our plants or fuel for the vehicles moving around our sites or the logistics around the UK, that's kind of the third biggest element. So we've been trialling some electric vehicles. We're looking to move to trialing some hydrogen vehicles as well. And absolutely, we want to be at the forefront of the technology as it comes through. I think there's clearly question marks still around the networks, both in the electric space and the hydrogen space. There's questions to answer around the safe storage of hydrogen, particularly on our sites. But absolutely, we're working very closely with all our partners because we want to be at the forefront of that. We're working very closely with the MPA, so the Mineral Products Association.
Ricky Hatton did not have
An extra member of the audience is always good to see. So we're working very closely with the Mineral Products Association at the moment to look at how we can get hydrogen as a burner fuel into our asphalt plants as well. So it's an absolute key part of our strategy to net zero, and it's really important we work together to deliver that.
Philip, did you just want to come in
Yeah, I
there?
just want to make a comment that there's upstream and downstream, and no one company can solve all upstream and downstream issues. So at JCB, we've concentrated on a downstream product that you need hydrogen for. Our tier one customers are now saying, how do we get that hydrogen to site? And there are other issues like at what temperature, what pressure, in what vehicle, how's it getting there? So there's so many questions. But on the major sites, such as Sizewell B and East Thames, Lower Thames, should I say, it is going to be a hydrogen site. They are going to produce hydrogen on site, and it will be delivered to point of use. So they're already there, and these sites won't really come into full swing for another 2 years. And the other thing I just wanted to mention was, Asif mentioned hydrogen and noise. Obviously, a combustion engine isn't silent, and a hydrogen fuel cell is. But I just want to point out to the audience, hydrogen fuel cells work brilliantly in buses and generators and in static applications. If you put a fuel cell on a big excavator, it produces a massive amount of heat, so you have to have huge cooling packs. It also hates vibration, and it hates dust. So once it hates vibration, you've got a problem on your hands, which is why we fully tested fuel cells up to 20-ton vehicles, but decided to go down the combustion route because it just didn't work.
I think it's a really important piece of insight that you raise there, Philip, about making sure that the solutions that we are presenting are practical for their use. Because if we present something, that isn't practical to use for our customer, then, that's no good for anyone. Asif, just to sort of expand on that point a bit more, I think one of the things, and it's no coincidence that, we have a customer and we have a supply chain partner on the panel. How important is it to you that we use our position to influence and, drive change within the marketplace?
It's very important. It's a high priority. Phil mentioned we've got a relationship going back 20 plus years. Well, that 20 plus years relationship allows us to have the conversation about what's coming around the corner. What can we do to help JCB help us? And then going to talk to our customers to say, okay, we've got some innovation. What do you think about it? Can we trial it? Which application? So that whole supply chain. Look, a lot of people think supply chain is all about getting the best price. It's not, it's the best value. We were having that conversation earlier on. Yeah, and it's important that we continue to drive value, whether it's knowledge, whether it's support, whether it's helping our customers, understanding our customer's customer, and helping our customer win more work. We've got to work in different ways on that partnership approach. So the question was, how important do we think the role we have is? I think it's a big role we have, and we've got to maintain the focus on that.
I think, again, I mean, the whole theme of this, this conversation is about partnership. And I think, one of the other areas that we focus on is about obviously driving value within the supply chain. But how do we here at Speedy Hire, how do we prioritize building those relationships, but ultimately nurturing them to make sure that, we can get the right product that is, at the forefront of innovation, but also sustainable as well?
I don't think it's just Speedy's role. So if you look at Aggregate Industries, and we're delighted to have won the contract, and this is only the start. But during the tender stage, we would have learned a lot about Aggregate, and Aggregate Industries would have put down what their requirements are when it comes to sustainability, innovation, health and safety, and all the other areas. So yes, we ticked the right boxes, and we had the right conversations to get us to this point. But this is where the hard work starts. This is where we've got to maintain that conversation. We've got to open up our books with our supply chain, with our partners, and to really understand what is tomorrow's requirement. Yes, we're ticking a box today, but what is our tomorrow's requirement? So I think there's a bit of a push. Of course, we want to go to our customer base and say, what does good look like for you tomorrow? But equally, there's a pull. Our customers are also very good at their jobs. Therefore, they know what they want. Therefore, come to us and we'll find a solution.
Yeah, Philip, on you go.
We encourage our customers, like Speedy, to bring their customers to us as well. And there has to be a huge element of trust there. And I think after 20 years, they probably trust us. We never, everything is confidential with their clients and their tenders. But if they want to walk around our quarries or our factories for a day with their customers, talk to our engineers about their issues, we embrace that. And we're very fortunate because being a UK-based company, and we do start off with a sheet of metal, and it rolls off the production line as a digger, eventually, a couple of days later, we can actually show people really how it's coming together. So we've always opened ourselves up. I think you've done supplier days with us, but so have your competitors, but that's okay, because you trust us that we're not going to cross over confidential information, and we don't.
But I think on the competitor side, look, Speedy are not afraid of having competitors. In fact, we welcome that because it makes sure that we're all driving innovation. And sometimes no one organization can make that change. So if we've got a market leading position, and that comes with responsibility. And of course, we've got to make the right choices. But then that can sometimes motivate the competition to do the same. And ultimately, it might benefit the environment more. We might help speed up that. So, we're not afraid of the competition. We are on our journey. We've got our velocity transformation. And I think we want to stick to our own plan, but doesn't mean we can't help the competition along on that journey to help the environment, improve health and safety, feedback to our supply chain to ultimately provide a better service for our customers.
I think off the back of that, Tom, and just to bring you in on this point here, you've mentioned, obviously that you are a major supplier into highways, for example. Now, within highways, we know that is a massive sector which contributes towards emissions. How important is it to you that we, as a supplier, and JCB, as our supplier, how important is it to you that we take that collaborative approach to understanding your issues and, us enacting them help you, remove the obstacles?
It's absolutely vital. I think Asif made a good point. There's products for today, but then there's a journey, whether it be a journey to net zero or safer sites. And it's imperative that we work together and you understand what our challenges are and you understand where kind of UK PLC, whether it be National Highways, HS2, Lower Thames, what they want to achieve. And then as experts, you can then go away and deliver against that. There's no point going away and inventing something that's no use to the industry and doesn't help us kind of take us on that journey. So working together and having that kind of constant communication is absolutely vital.
Well, thank you very much for that. And I think this it sort of takes us now on to sort of understanding the sort of the wider relationship approach that we take to sort of understanding innovation and staying ahead of the curve on the supply chain. Asif, within your remit is obviously the supply chain team within Speedy Hire. Um, how what will your approach be so that we make sure that we're able to bring the best products to market that are obviously appropriate for our customers like Tom?
For me, I want to move away from this supplier-customer relationship. We have to have a partnership. And that partnership approach, that collaborative partnership approach is what's going to help us achieve what we want to achieve, help Aggregate and other customers like Aggregate achieve what they want to achieve, but also work with our supply chain to make sure we're all on the same page. And I think that collaborative and partnership approach, the more we can do that, the more we can talk on an open book basis, understanding each other's issues. Look, we're human, right? So we're a service industry and we're human. And this is my blind spot. Things will end up there. It's the same with our organization. We won't get everything right all the time. But how do we learn from our mistakes? How do we learn from the mistakes of others to apply and provide a better service? But we shouldn't be afraid to make mistakes, because if we're afraid to make mistakes, we're not being entrepreneurial. And I want to have that relationship where I can pick up the phone to Tom, pick up the phone to Phil and say, got an idea, what do you think? And likewise, Tom picking up the phone and saying, okay, let's do something a bit different here. Okay, let's give it a go. And that entrepreneurial spirit will drive innovation, will drive that partnership, and ultimately benefit us all.
Yeah, no, I agree. Can I just say that driving cost doesn't drive growth? Now, I would say that because we're all beaten up by your buyers. But it's one of those things where you have to work together. If you look at margin and focus on margin, and these guys are hampered by high rates in the market, we're hampered by absolute costs of manufacture, cost of finance, inflation, all those other things. You've got to have very sensible, open discussions about this, because these are partnerships are long term. They're not, oh, let's buy 1,000 of those and see you. We'll see you in 3 years' time and we might buy some more. It's constant. It happens it evolves every week. That's the key to these long-term relationships.
I think that's exactly it. And I think the opportunity in itself presents not just to us, but to yourself and to our customers as well. So, Tom, just to sort of pick up on the back of what Philip has said there, and just sort of to get a better understanding of what is important to you guys within your sector. You've obviously got a very varied customer base, but in terms of innovation and understanding your priorities, is that the right approach to think, what Asif and Philip have just described?
Yeah, I think there's two different types of relationships. There's a transactional relationship where you, as Philip says, you're going in and you're buying something and you're walking away, and perhaps you don't meet again for another 5 or 6 years. And then you've got those strategic relationships where you've got to get to a point where it's a win-win. So both parties effectively are winning off the back of the relationship. I think if you can get to that space, that then really cements the collaboration and the partnership between the two organisations. So initially, you need to work really hard to find those points, and you do fail along the way, and you do have issues. Look, a lot of us work in the construction industry, and a big part of the construction industry is when you do fail, finding a workaround, and you'll always see project managers in the construction industry lauded for their ability to kind of pivot when needed, and that's where a strong relationship comes in, because you can have the conversation, say, right, this has happened, how do we move on from that, and how do we make the best out of this situation, and effectively celebrate together at the end of it.
Absolutely.
I think in terms of what you've said there, I think it leads quite nicely on the sort of final topic of conversation, which for us is taking that relationship from when we win the contract to sort of mobilising the sort of site setup, and this is probably one more for sort of Asif to explore in his answer. But in terms of when it comes to site mobilisation, what would you say our strength at Speedy is our ability to sort of get these sites sort of set up. But I think from a customer's perspective, they're really looking for something that is a seamless experience, something that where they can sort of rely on Speedy to come to site, get it set up and get it operational as quickly as possible. What is your approach, or what's your philosophy, I guess, on how we should do that at Speedy, and how can we improve on it?
Well, I think every mobilisation comes with its own challenges. And an organisation like Aggregate, you'll have multiple sites, you'll have multiple people who, let's face it, it's not going to be an easy ride. Some might be, yes, we know Speedy, we welcome them with open arms, and other sites might be a bit more reluctant. They've got an incumbent they've built up a relationship with over the years. So this is where we've got to work together with our customers, really understand which are the easy wins, but then also where do we need to apply focus, and how do we win the hearts and minds of people? It's going back to that people aspect. Look, we're not afraid to work hard. We're not afraid to put the resource in, a mobilisation team to work with, for example, with Aggregate to achieve what we both want to achieve. But we will only get the benefit of what we've agreed during the tender stage, during the award stage, if we work together. And again, going back to that partnership approach, we understand how we need to do what we need to do. We'll understand what the challenges are, which hurdles do we need to climb over, and we're prepared to do it. And if that means putting a mobilisation team in place, we'll do that. If that means we need to build a relationship through phone calls or any other way, we're prepared to do it. But it does mean that we work together collaboratively, because only then will we achieve what we set out to achieve.
Now, a lot of these big deals are done at director level or senior management level, and they last for years sometimes. I'm a great believer in the relationship manager, and that relationship manager can be somebody relatively junior coming up through the company that gives the card over and says, "This is my number, 24/7. Anything you have a problem with, I will be the conduit within Speedy to deal with it." And I know Speedy have done that in the past. I'm sure you still do it, because you had the desks where you actually looked after a client at a time. I forgot what we called it.
Desks, yeah.
But that worked really well. And in those days, there were 10 or so people, all of whom could answer a question or a query. So you'd have, as I said, your AIs and your complex algorithms, but it's still people that make things happen.
Absolutely, and I think it's one of those things. I think that we all have had, we've sort of looked at this, at quite a strategic level in terms of the importance of partnerships, innovation, and embracing new technology, whether that be AI, hydrogen power, or battery fuel, for example. But I think ultimately, what we're really taking away from today is the importance of that relationship and managing that relationship really with the end user, or right across the supply chain, which ultimately helps us drive value. But thank you very much for taking part today. Thank you very much for the audience to come along. Appreciate coming after Ricky Hatton. It is a difficult one to follow, but
done well.
Thank you very much for your time and your participation today. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Right.